There is a reason you stopped scrolling. There is a reason your eyes locked onto these words at this exact moment, in this exact second, on this exact day. You may have thought it was random. You may have told yourself, it's just another video, just another message, but deep inside, something didn't let you move on. Something held you here. Something whispered, pay attention. That whisper is not your imagination. It is the beginning of awareness. Because June 9th is not an ordinary day for you. It has been marked. Long before you woke up this morning, long before you felt that heaviness in your chest, long before that strange pressure started building in your thoughts. And what you've been calling stress, what you've been trying to explain away as tiredness, overthinking, or just life being difficult is not what it seems. No. This is something deeper. Have you noticed it? That weight that doesn't match your situation, that anxiety that shows up even when nothing is technically wrong, that tension in your body, like you're bracing for something, but you don't know what, that mental noise that won't quiet down. Even when you try to rest, it doesn't make sense, does it? Because part of you knows this isn't normal stress. And that's exactly why this message had to find you now. Archangel Michael steps forward in this moment, not gently, not quietly, but with urgency wrapped in clarity. His presence doesn't come to confuse you. It comes to cut through confusion. And right now, he is revealing something that your spirit has been trying to tell you for days, maybe even weeks. The stress you feel is not random. It is not accidental. It is not meaningless. It is a signal. A spiritual signal. You see, most people ignore this feeling. Most people push it down, distract themselves, scroll past it, numb it with noise, or bury it under routine. But you couldn't. You tried, didn't you? You told yourself to relax. You told yourself it would pass. You tried to sleep it off, think it away, shake it off. But it stayed. Because it wasn't sent to be ignored. It was sent to wake you up. Right now, there is movement happening in the unseen realm. Shifts, alignments, disruptions that your physical eyes cannot yet detect, but your spirit can feel. And that feeling, that pressure, that uneasiness, it is your soul reacting to something changing, something approaching, something that requires your awareness. Archangel Michael does not interrupt your life without reason. When he steps in like this, it means timing is critical. It means something has reached a point where silence is no longer safe. And today, June 9th, is that moment. This is not fear. This is not panic. This is preparation. You are not being overwhelmed. You are being alerted. Because what's coming next in your life, what is forming just beyond what you can currently see, will either catch you off guard or elevate you into alignment. And the difference between those two outcomes is whether you listen now. Don't dismiss it, bum. Don't brush it aside. Don't tell yourself, I'll come back later. Because this is not just content. This is a divine interruption. And you were meant to hear it. The question is no longer, why do I feel this way? The question now is, am I ready to understand what this stress is trying to reveal? Type I am aware in the comments if you feel this message is meant for you. Blessing code 909 is now activating around your spirit. Listen closely, because this is where the truth begins to separate itself from everything you've been telling yourself. What you've been feeling lately, that pressure sitting on your chest, that mental exhaustion that doesn't go away even after rest, that emotional heaviness that follows you from morning into night, you've been trying to own it. You've been trying to explain it. You've been trying to fix it as if it belongs to you. But Archangel Michael is stepping in now with clarity that may shake you, but it will also free you. That weight you've been carrying was never yours to begin with. You thought it was stress from responsibilities, You told yourself it was because of work, family, expectations, or the constant demands of life. You blamed yourself for not being strong enough and not being focused enough and not being together enough. You questioned your discipline. You questioned your mindset. You even questioned your peace. But what if the problem was never your strength? What if the problem was what you've been unknowingly carrying in your spirit? Because not all stress is created equal. Some stress comes from my but some stress is transferred. Built up. Absorbed. Carried without permission. And you, whether you realized it or not, have been walking through environments, conversations, and energies that left residue on your spirit. Think about it. Have you had moments where you felt fine and then suddenly, after being around certain people, your energy dropped, your mood shifted, your thoughts became heavier, darker, more restless, and you couldn't explain why? That's not coincidence. That's spiritual weight being placed on you. Archangel Michael reveals that what you're experiencing right now is not just internal. It is external pressure pressing inward. You have been carrying emotions that didn't originate from you. You have been processing tension that was never assigned to your life. You have been holding on to invisible burdens that came from places you didn't even notice in the moment. And the reason it feels so confusing is because it blended into your normal. You didn't see the moment it attached itself. You didn't feel the exact second it settled into your thoughts. It happened gradually, quietly, subtly, through repeated exposure, through emotional connections, through situations where your guard was down and your spirit was open. And now, it has built up. That's why you feel overwhelmed without a clear reason. That's why your thoughts feel crowded. That's why even small things feel heavier than they should. Because you are not just carrying your life, you are carrying what was never meant for you. Archangel Michael speaks with authority here. Release what is not yours. But here's the challenge. You can't release what you still believe belongs to you. And that's where awakening begins. You must start to recognize the difference between your true state and what hath been layered onto you. Your true state is not constant anxiety. Your true state is not confusion. Your true state is not this level of heaviness. Those things were introduced, not created within you. Your spirit, at its core, is clear. It is grounded. It is aligned. But it has been clouded. And now, that clouding has reached a level where it can no longer remain hidden. That is why the stress intensified. That is why it became impossible to ignore. Because what stays subtle for too long eventually becomes loud. Not to break you, but to alert you. This is the moment where you stop internalizing everything you feel. This is the moment where you stop assuming every emotion is your responsibility. This is the moment where you begin to ask a different question, a deeper question. Is this mine, or did I pick this up somewhere along the way? Because once you ask that question, everything starts to shift. You begin to separate yourself from the weight. You begin to observe instead of absorb. You begin to reclaim space in your mind, space in your spirit, space in your energy that has been occupied by things that never had permission to stay. And this is exactly what June 9th is initiating. A separation, a clearing, a release. But understand this, release is not automatic. Awareness is the first step, but action must follow. You must consciously decide that you are no longer carrying what drains you, what confuses you, what weighs you down without purpose. You must choose to let it go. Because the longer you hold on to what isn't yours, the heavier it becomes. And the heavier it becomes, the harder it is to hear the clarity that is trying to reach you. Archangel Michael is not just pointing out the problem. He is preparing you for what comes next. He is clearing your vision so that when the next shift happens, you are not burdened, not distracted, not clouded. You are ready. But it starts here, with one realization: you were never meant to carry this. Type "I release what is not mine" in the comments if you are ready to let go. Blessing code 222 is now surrounding your mind and spirit. Now listen carefully, because this is where everything you've been feeling begins to make sense in a way that cannot be ignored. This is not random. This is not just one of those phases. This is not your mind playing tricks on you, and it is not simply the pressure of everyday life piling up all at once. Archangel Michael is stepping forward with a warning that cuts through every excuse, every doubt, every attempt to minimize what you've been experiencing. This is strategic. There is intention behind the stress you feel. There is timing behind the pressure that suddenly increased. There is design behind the confusion that tried to settle into your thoughts. And once you understand this, you will stop blaming yourself for something that was never meant to break you but was designed to distract you. Because strategy means this: something observed you before it approached you. Something studied your patterns. It noticed when you were strongest. It noticed when you were most focused, most peaceful, most aligned. And instead of confronting you directly, it chose a quieter path, a slower method, a subtle entry. It didn't attack you loudly. It pressed on you gradually. A little more stress here, a little more tension there. Small disruptions that didn't seem important at first. A slight shift in your energy. A few restless thoughts. A moment of doubt. A delay that didn't make sense. And over time, these small things began to stack, layer upon layer, until you reached a point where you no longer felt like yourself. That is strategy. And Archangel Michael is revealing this now, because if you don't recognize strategy, you will continue to mislabel it as coincidence. You will continue trying to fix symptoms instead of seeing the source. You will keep adjusting your behavior, your habits, your routines, while the real issue remains untouched. But now the veil is lifting. You must understand this clearly. The goal was never just to make you feel stressed. The goal was to cloud your clarity, to interrupt your focus, to slow your momentum, to create enough internal noise that you would hesitate at the very moment you were supposed to move forward. Think about the timing. Why now? Why did this pressure increase right when you were beginning to feel more focused? Why did confusion appear when you were gaining clarity? Why did distractions multiply when you were starting to align with something deeper? That is not coincidence. That is interference. And interference only shows up when movement is about to happen. Archangel Michael does not bring this message to create fear. He brings it to restore your awareness. Because once you see the strategy, it loses its power to control you. Once you recognize the pattern, you stop reacting emotionally and start responding with clarity. You begin to step back. You begin to observe. You begin to realize that not every thought deserves your attention, not every feeling deserves your reaction, and not every pressure deserves your energy. And that shift right there, that awareness, is what breaks the cycle. Because strategy depends on your participation. It depends on you believing that everything you feel is yours. It depends on you reacting automatically instead of questioning what is happening. It depends on you staying in confusion long enough to miss your moment. But you are no longer in that state. You are waking up. You are beginning to see that something has been trying to redirect your path, not by force but by distraction. Not by stopping you completely, but by slowing you down just enough to delay what is meant for you. And now, Archangel Michael is interrupting that delay. He is drawing a line between what is real and what was introduced. He is pulling your awareness back into alignment. He is reminding you that you are not powerless in this. You are not at the mercy of what you feel. You are not stuck in this cycle. You are being shown the truth so you can step out of it. Because once you understand that this stress is strategic, you stop internalizing it. You stop carrying it as your identity. You stop letting it define your state of being. Instead, you begin to detach from it, and in the detachment, you regain control. You regain clarity. You regain direction. And most importantly, you regain timing. Because what is coming next in your life requires you to be clear, not clouded. Focused, not distracted. Grounded, not overwhelmed. And that is why this warning is coming now, before the next shift fully arrives. This is not the moment to shrink back. This is not the moment to second-guess yourself. This is the moment to recognize what has been happening and rise above it with full awareness. Because the moment you stop calling it random is the moment you start taking your power back. Type ISE the strategy in the comments if this truth is clear to you. Blessing code 333 is now activating around your awareness. As this truth settles into your spirit, understand this: every revelation you receive here is not just for you. It is meant to reach others who are still lost in confusion, still carrying burdens they cannot explain. When you choose to support this mission through Super Thanks or through the PayPal link in the description, you are not giving to a channel. You are sowing light into someone else's darkness. The word declares, "Give, and it shall be given unto you." And right now, that promise is speaking directly over your life, calling you into action. I feel led to say this clearly. This is your moment to become part of the movement that awakens souls. Your seed becomes a voice. Your giving becomes a breakthrough for someone who hasn't heard this truth yet. Do not delay this act of obedience, because what you release now will return to you multiplied in ways you cannot yet see. Step forward, take action, and let your generosity become a river that carries God's message further than you ever could alone. Now that you see the strategy, you must go deeper. Because what you've been feeling is only the surface. What's really happening is not just around you. It is operating behind the scenes, in ways your physical eyes cannot fully detect, but your spirit has been reacting to this entire time. There is a hidden battle unfolding. Not loud, not obvious, not dramatic in a way you might expect, but precise, calculated, quiet enough to go unnoticed if you are not paying attention, yet powerful enough to influence your thoughts, your emotions, and your decisions without ever announcing itself. This is why the stress felt so confusing. Because you were trying to solve something visible while the source remained invisible. Archangel Michael reveals that what you are experiencing is a form of spiritual pressure designed to operate beneath your awareness. It does not need to confront you directly to affect you. It works through influence, through subtle shifts, through internal disruption. It begins in the mind, a thought that doesn't feel like yours, a sudden doubt that interrupts your confidence, a feeling of hesitation where there used to be certainty. And before you realize it, that one thought multiplies. It loops. It repeats. It begins to shape your perception of your situation, your path, even yourself. Then it moves into your emotions. You feel heavy than usual, more sensitive, more reactive. Things that normally wouldn't disturb you begin to feel overwhelming. Your pace is soaring. Your clarity fades. And you start to question whether something is wrong with you. But nothing is wrong with you. What's happening is influence. And influence becomes powerful when it goes unrecognized. Because once it is accepted as normal, it gains access to stay. This is the hidden battle, one that does not rely on force, but on subtle agreement. It does not need to overpower you if it can simply convince you. Convince you that the stress is yours. Convince you that the confusion is natural. Convince you that the heaviness is just part of life. But Archangel Michael is exposing this now so you no longer agree with it. Because the moment you stop agreeing, the influence begins to weaken. And here is where it becomes even more important for you to understand what's really happening. This battle is not random, and it is not without purpose. It is attempting to position you in a state where you are less aware, less focused, less decisive. Because in that state, you are easier to redirect, easier to delay, easier to pull away from what is meant for you. Think about the moments recently where you felt unsure about something you were once certain about. Think about the times where you hesitated, where you delayed action, where you second-guessed a decision that felt clear before. That is not coincidence. That is interference trying to alter your timing. Because timing matters. And right now, you are approaching something that requires you to be aligned, clear, and decisive. Which is exactly why this hidden pressure increased. Not to stop you completely, but to slow you down just enough to miss the moment. But you are not missing it, because you are seeing it now. Archangel Michael is not just revealing the battle, he is repositioning you within it. He is bringing you out of unconscious reaction and into conscious awareness. And that changes everything. Because awareness breaks patterns. Awareness interrupts cycles. Awareness restores control. When you become aware of what is happening behind the scenes, you stop reacting automatically. You begin to pause. You begin to question. You begin to separate yourself from what is being introduced into your mind and emotions. You begin to recognize that not everything that enters your thoughts deserves to stay there. You begin to understand that your peace is not something you lost. It is something that was being covered. And once it is uncovered, it returns. This is why this moment matters so much. Because the hidden battle only remains effective as long as it stays hidden. Now it is exposed. Now you see that what you've been feeling is not just stress. It is pressure attempting to influence your state of being. And now that you see it, you have a choice. You can continue to absorb it or you can step out of it. Archangel Michael is guiding you toward the second. He is calling you to rise above the noise, above the confusion, above the emotional weight that tried to settle on you. Not by force, not by struggle, but by awareness and alignment. Because once you are aligned, the influence loses its hold. Once you are grounded, the pressure cannot move you. Once you are clear, the strategy begins to fail. And this is where your strength truly returns, not from fighting harder, but from seeing clearly. You were never as overwhelmed as it tried to make you feel. You were simply being influenced without full awareness. But now, that awareness is here, and everything begins to change from this point forward. Type ISC what's hidden in the comments if you are aware of this shift. Lesson code 444 is now surrounding your clarity and protection. There is something you must understand now, because if you miss this, you will continue to question yourself instead of stepping into what you were designed for. You were not randomly affected by this pressure. You were not just unlucky to feel it more than others. You were not simply overwhelmed while everyone else seems fine. You were chosen to feel this first. And that truth changes everything. Because what you've been experiencing is not a weakness, it is sensitivity. Not emotional instability, but spiritual awareness. Not overreaction, but early detection. You are not breaking down. You are picking up on something before it becomes visible to everyone else. Think about it. Why is it that you feel shifts before others even notice them? Why do you sense tension before it's spoken? Why do you feel unsettled even when everything appears calm on the surface? It's because your awareness operates ahead of what is visible. You don't just respond to what happens, you sense what is about to happen. And that is not common. That is not accidental. That is intentional design. Archangel Michael is revealing this now because you've spent too much time misunderstanding your own sensitivity. You've called it overthinking. You've called it anxiety. You've tried to suppress it, ignore it, even question it. But what if what you've been trying to silence is actually the very thing guiding you? Because those who are meant to move first feel first. Those who are meant to shift direction early sense the disruption before it arrives. Those who are meant to avoid what others walk in to receive the warning before it becomes obvious. And that is exactly what is happening to you right now. You are being alerted before others are aware. While others continue in routine, unaware of the shift forming around them, you are already feeling the pressure of that shift. Not because you are ahead in circumstance, but because you are ahead in awareness. And awareness comes with weight. Because when you feel something first, you don't always have confirmation. You don't always have proof. You can't always explain it to others. And that can make you question yourself. But you must stop doing that. Because what you are feeling is real, even if it is not yet visible. Archangel Michael is making this clear. Your sensitivity is not the problem. It is the signal. The stress you feel is not just pressure. It is information. It is your spirit picking up on movement before it manifests physically. It is your internal awareness responding to something shifting in your environment, your path, your timing. And instead of honoring that awareness, you've been trying to silence it. You've been trying to calm down, stop thinking so much, just relax, as if the feeling itself is the issue. But the feeling is not the issue. The feeling is the message. And now, you are being asked to listen. Because this is where your role becomes clear. You are not here to follow the shift. You are here to recognize it early. You are not here to react after everything unfolds. You are here to position yourself before it does. You are not here to move when everyone else moves. You are here to move when you feel the signal. That is why you were chosen to feel this first. Not to carry it alone, not to be overwhelmed by it, but to interpret it. To recognize what is happening before it fully arrives. To adjust before the pressure becomes visible. To align before the opportunity where disruption reaches its peak. This is not about fear. This is about preparation. Because when you understand your sensitivity as awareness, everything changes. You stop doubting yourself. You stop waiting for external confirmation. You stop needing others to validate what you already feel internally. You begin to trust your perception. You begin to move with clarity. You begin to recognize that what you feel is not something to escape, but something to understand. And that understanding gives you an advantage. Because while others are still trying to figure out what's happening, you are already adjusting. You are already stepping back, observing, aligning yourself in a way that protects your clarity and positions you correctly for what comes next. This is why Archangel Michael is speaking to you specifically. Because not everyone can hear this message. Not everyone would recognize it. Not everyone would feel it the way you do. What you do. And that means something. It means you are not behind. It means you are not lost. It means you are not overwhelmed in the way you thought. It means you are aware. And awareness is the first step to control. So stop questioning why you feel this more than others. Start understanding that you were meant to, because you are the one who sees it first. And now that you see it, you must choose what to do with it. Type "I trust what I feel" in the comments if you are ready to honor your awareness. Blessing code 555 is now activating your discernment and direction. Now you must face something that may feel uncomfortable, but it is necessary for your clarity. What happens if you ignore this? What happens if you continue to push this feeling aside? Label it as nothing, distract yourself from it, and move forward as if this pressure has no meaning. Archangel Michael is very clear here. Ignoring this signal does not make it disappear. It delays your understanding. And delay, in this moment, is where the real danger lies. Because what you are feeling is not just discomfort. It is direction trying to reach you. It is awareness attempting to guide you. And when guidance is ignored, it does not stop speaking. It simply becomes harder to hear. That is how people miss their timing. Not because they were not warned, but because they chose comfort over awareness. Think about how you've been responding up to this point. When the stress increased, did you pause and ask why, or did you try to escape it? Did you sit with the feeling and observe it, or did you immediately try to distract yourself from it? Most people choose distraction. They scroll. They busy themselves. They fill their time with noise so they don't have to confront what they feel. And for a moment, it works. The feeling quiets down. The pressure seems to fade. But it always returns. Stronger. More persistent. More difficult to ignore. Because the message was never received. Archangel Michael warns that this pattern, this cycle of feeling, ignoring, distracting, and repeating, is exactly how clarity is delayed. And when clarity is delayed, decisions become misaligned. When decisions become misaligned, timing begins to shift. And when timing shifts, opportunities either pass unnoticed or arrive when you are not prepared. This is not about punishment. This is about consequence. Because every signal you receive carries information. And every piece of information you ignore leaves a gap in your awareness. That gap becomes the space where confusion grows. And confusion is where mistakes happen. Not because you lack intelligence. Not because you lack capability. But because you moved without full clarity. And right now, you are being given the chance to avoid that. You are being given awareness before action is required. You are being shown what is happening before you make a decision that could either align you or pull you further away from where you are meant to be. But that only works if you listen. Ignoring this stress signal is not neutral. It does not keep things the same. It shifts you into a state where you are reacting instead of responding. Where you are moving based on surface-level understanding instead of deeper awareness. And that is where distraction becomes dangerous. Because distraction doesn't always look obvious. It doesn't always appear as something negative. Sometimes it shows up as productivity, as routine, as doing what you've always done, just to avoid confronting what is changing. But continuing in the same pattern when something new is trying to emerge is still a form of avoidance. Archangel Michael is not asking you to stop your life. He is asking you to stop ignoring what your spirit is already showing you. Because the longer you ignore it, the louder it becomes. And if it has to become louder, it may come through situations instead of sensations. Through deceptions instead of feelings. Through events that force your attention instead of gently guiding it. And that is not where you want to reach. You are being given a moment right now where the signal is still internal. Still manageable. Still something you can sit with, understand, and respond to without chaos. But if ignored, that same signal may externalize. And when it becomes external, it is no longer just something you feel. It becomes something you experience in your circumstances. That is the escalation. And that is what you are being guided to avoid. This is why June 9th matters. This is why this message reached you now. Because this is the moment where you choose whether to listen early or be forced to understand later. And there is a difference. Listening early keeps you in control. Being forced to understand later puts you in reaction. You are not meant to react. You are meant to respond with awareness. So do not dismiss what you feel. Do not minimize it. Do not explain it away just because it doesn't fully make sense yet. Because not everything is meant to make sense immediately. Some things are meant to be recognized first and understood after. And this is one of those moments. Archangel Michael is not warning you because something is wrong. He's warning you because something is about to require your clarity. And ignoring this now only delays your readiness for what comes next. So the question becomes simple. Will you continue to distract yourself, or will you finally pay attention? Type "I will not ignore this" in the comments if you are choosing awareness now. Lesson code 606 is now strengthening your focus and timing. There are moments in life that look ordinary on the surface, but carry a weight beneath them that cannot be explained until later. June 9th is one of those moments. It is not just another day passing through the calendar. It is not just another point in time that blends into routine. It is a line, a threshold, a turning point that separates what has been from what is about to begin. And the stress you've been feeling has been leading you to this exact moment. Archangel Michael is making this clear. This is not just a warning. It is a deadline. Not in a way that creates fear, but in a way that demands awareness. Because a deadline is not about pressure. It is about timing. It is about alignment. It is about recognizing that something is reaching a point where it can no longer remain the same. You have been in a build-up phase. Everything you felt, the pressure, the confusion, the heightened awareness, the emotional weight, has been part of a process that was moving toward this specific moment. And now that moment has arrived. Not loudly, not dramatically, but internally, deeply, undeniably. This is where things begin to shift. But here is what you must understand. A turning point does not force change. It offers it. You are standing at a moment where your response determines your direction, where your awareness determines your alignment, where your willingness to listen determines what unfolds next. Because June 9th is not just marking time, it is marking a decision. Will you continue as you were, carrying what you now know is not yours, ignoring what you now recognize as a signal, moving forward without clarity? Or will you pause, observe, and realign yourself with what you are now becoming aware of? That choice matters more than you realize. Because turning points are subtle. They don't always come with clear signs or external confirmation. Sometimes they come as a feeling, a realization, a moment where something inside you says, "This is where things change." And that is exactly where you are right now. Archangel Michael reveals that what makes this moment critical is not just what is happening within you, but what is about to happen around you. There are movements already in place, situations unfolding, opportunities forming, decisions approaching, and all of them are connected to how aligned you are in this moment. If you are clear, you will recognize them. If you are distracted, you may miss them. If you are grounded, you will move correctly. If you are overwhelmed, you may hesitate. That is why this moment matters so much. Because it is not just about understanding what you've been feeling. It is about preparing you for what is coming next. A deadline is not always about something ending. Sometimes it is about something becoming available. But availability does not guarantee access. Access comes through alignment, and alignment happens through awareness. That is what June 9th is offering you. A moment to step out of confusion and into clarity. A moment to release what has been weighing on you and stand in your true state. A moment to reset your internal position so that what is coming next meets you in readiness, not hesitation. You are not being rushed. You are being positioned. But positioning requires action. Not loud action. Not external movement. But internal decision. A decision to stop carrying what you've been holding. A decision to stop ignoring what you've been feeling. A decision to trust that this moment has meaning, even if you don't yet see the full picture. Because you don't need the full picture to respond correctly. You only need awareness. And you have that now. This is why Archangel Michael has brought you to this exact point in the message. Not earlier. Not later. But now. Because now is when it matters. Now is when the shift is possible. Now is when the direction can change. Now is when alignment can be restored before anything external demands it. This is the difference between being prepared and being caught off guard. You are not being left to figure this out on your own. You are being guided to recognize the moment while you are still within it. And that is an advantage. Most people only understand turning points after they've passed. You are being given the awareness during it. So do not treat this as just another day. Do not move through it unconsciously. Do not let this moment pass without recognizing what it is offering you. Because this is where the shift begins. Not later. Not eventually. Now, type I choose alignment now in the comments if you are stepping into this moment with awareness. Blessing code 777 is now activating your timing and direction. You've made it to the edge of something significant, whether you fully realize it yet or not. Everything you've been feeling, the pressure, the weight, the confusion, the heightened awareness, it has not been building without purpose. It has been building toward a breaking point. And now, that breaking point is here. But understand this clearly. When pressure breaks, it does not always collapse. It releases. It shifts. It transforms into something else. And that is exactly what is about to happen in your life. Archangel Michael is revealing that the pressure you've been under is reaching its limit. Not because it defeated you, not because you endured it endlessly, but because it has served its role. It has brought you to awareness. It has forced you to pay attention. It has separated what is yours from what is not. And now that awareness has been activated, the pressure can no longer remain in the same way. Something is about to shift. Not in a dramatic, overwhelming explosion, but in a precise, noticeable release. A moment where something that once felt heavy suddenly feels lighter. A situation that once felt confusing suddenly becomes clear. A decision that once felt difficult suddenly becomes obvious. This is how pressure breaks. It does not always leave with noise, it leaves with clarity. You may not even recognize the exact moment it happens, but you will feel the difference. The mental noise that once filled your thoughts will quiet. The emotional weight that once followed you will lift. The constant tension that kept you on edge will ease. And in its place there will be space. Space to think. Space to see. Space to move. This is what Archangel Michael has been preparing you for. Not just to endure the pressure, but to outgrow it. Because pressure cannot stay where awareness has taken over. It cannot hold its position once you stop feeding it with confusion and begin observing it with clarity. But here is where you must stay alert. Because when pressure breaks, it creates an opening, and that opening must be filled intentionally. If you do not step into that space with awareness, with alignment, with clarity, something else will try to fill it. Old patterns, old habits, old ways of thinking that feel familiar but no longer serve you. This is why this moment matters. Because you are not just experiencing the release of pressure, you are being given the opportunity to redefine your state. Who you become after the pressure breaks matters. How you think after the noise clears matters. What you choose after the confusion fades matters. Because this is where new direction begins. Archangel Michael is guiding you to understand that this shift is not just about relief. It is about readiness. The pressure was never meant to stay permanently. It was meant to prepare you for what you are about to step into. And what you are stepping into requires clarity. It requires presence. It requires you to be fully aware of what is happening, so you do not fall back into what you have already outgrown. You will notice this shift in subtle ways. A conversation that suddenly makes sense. A realization that changes your perspective instantly. A feeling of calm where there was once tension. A decision that feels clear without overthinking. These are not small things. These are indicators that the pressure has broken. And once it breaks, you must not return to the state that existed before. Because going back resets the cycle. Moving forward completes it. This is why Archangel Michael is not just announcing the shift. He is preparing you to receive it correctly. Because receiving the shift requires awareness just as much as enduring the pressure did. You must recognize the moment when it happens. You must trust the clarity that follows. You must move with the understanding that something has changed, even if everything around you looks the same. Because the real shift is internal first. External changes follow. And right now, that internal shift is already beginning. You are not where you were when this message started. You are more aware, more grounded, more clear. And that is the evidence that the pressure is already starting to release. But stay present, because the next steps you take will determine how fully you step into this new state. Do not rush. Do not overanalyze. Simply remain aware. Because what is unfolding now is exactly what you were being prepared for. Type "I receive the shift" in the comments if you are ready to step into this new clarity. Blessing code 888 is now activating your release and renewal. As this shift begins to unfold within you, understand that this moment is not only transforming your life, it is meant to reach others who are still trapped under the same pressure you just broke free from. When you choose to give through Super Thanks or through the PayPal link in the description, you are not supporting a message. You are becoming a vessel that carries light into places where confusion still lives. The word speaks. Whoever sows generously will also reap generously. And this is not just a verse. It is a living promise being activated through your obedience right now. I feel this strongly for you. This is your moment to step into alignment through action, to allow your giving to become a seed that multiplies truth across countless lives. Your support becomes a river that flows beyond you, breaking chains you may never see but heaven fully records. Do not hesitate in this moment. Move with purpose, give with faith, and let your obedience unlock a greater flow over your own life. And now that the pressure is beginning to break, there is something critical you must not overlook. Because what comes after the release is just as important as what came before it. This is the moment where many people make a mistake. They feel the shift, they feel the lightness returning, and instead of grounding themselves in it, they rush forward. They try to act immediately, decide quickly, speak too soon, or re-engage with everything they had pulled back from. But Archangel Michael is very clear here. This is not the time to rush. This is the time to become still. Because stillness is where clarity stabilizes. Silence is where truth becomes undeniable. And discernment is what protects everything you have just regained. You have just come out of a period where your thoughts were crowded, your emotions were heavy, and your awareness was being tested. Now that space is opening again. Now that clarity is returning. But clarity, in its early stage, is quiet. It is subtle. It does not force itself. It requires you to meet it with stillness so it can fully form. If you move too quickly, you interrupt that process. If you speak too soon, you distort what is still becoming clear. If you react too fast, you risk stepping back into the very confusion you just came out of. This is why silence matters right now. Not silence out of fear. Not silence because you have nothing to say. But intentional silence, where you choose not to respond immediately, not to explain everything, not to engage in every conversation or situation that presents itself. Because not everything requires your voice. Some things require your observation. Some things require your restraint. Some things require your ability to see clearly before you participate. And this is where discernment becomes your strongest tool. Discernment is not just knowing what is right or wrong. It is knowing what is aligned and what is not. It is recognizing what deserves your attention and what does not. It is the ability to sense the difference between what appears important and what actually is. Right now, your discernment is heightened, but it must be protected. Because as clarity returns, distractions will still try to present themselves. Old patterns may attempt to re-enter. Situations that once pulled you in may show up again, expecting the same response from you. But you are not in the same state anymore. You are not responding from confusion. You are not reacting from pressure. You are now operating from awareness. And awareness requires discipline. It requires you to pause before reacting. It requires you to question before agreeing. It requires you to step back before stepping in. Archangel Michael is guiding you into a posture of observation. Not withdrawal, not isolation, but controlled presence. Where you are aware of what is happening around you, but you are not automatically participating in it. This is how you protect your clarity. Because clarity is not just something you receive. It is something you maintain. And maintenance requires stillness. You will begin to notice things more clearly now. The way people speak. The way situations unfold. The subtle patterns that you may have overlooked before. And in those moments, you will feel the urge to respond, to act, to engage. But pause. Because not every moment is meant for action. Some moments are meant for understanding. Some moments are meant for watching how things reveal themselves without your interference. And when you allow that process to unfold, your discernment becomes sharper. You begin to see not just what is happening, but why it is happening. And that awareness gives you control. Because you are no longer reacting to surface-level appearances. You are responding based on deeper understanding. This is the shift. From reaction to response. From noise to clarity. From pressure to presence. Archangel Michael is not just guiding you out of stress. He is guiding you into a new way of operating. A way where you are not easily pulled into confusion, not easily influenced by external pressure, not easily distracted from your alignment. But this requires you to honor this moment. Do not rush back into noise. Do not fill your space immediately. Do not feel the need to explain everything you are realizing. Let it settle. Let it stabilize. Let it become solid within you. because once it becomes solid, it cannot be shaken easily, and that is where your true strength lies, not in reacting quickly, but in remaining steady, not in speaking first, but in seeing clearly, not in doing more, but in doing what is aligned. You are entering a phase where less reaction creates more clarity, where less noise creates more understanding, where less urgency creates more precision. And this is exactly where you need to be for what comes next. Type "I choose stillness" and clarity in the comments if you are stepping into this state. Blessing code 9090 is now strengthening your discernment and inner stability. Now that you have entered this space of clarity, stillness, and discernment, there is something else that must be addressed. Something that many try to avoid, delay, or soften because it feels uncomfortable. But Archangel Michael does not soften truth when it is necessary for your alignment. You are entering a season of separation, not punishment, not loss for the sake of loss, but intentional separation, where what no longer aligns with who you are becoming begins to fall away. And this is where many people misunderstand what is happening. They think something is going wrong when, in reality, something is being corrected. Because growth always creates distance. Distance between who you were and who you are becoming. Distance between old patterns and new awareness. Distance between environments that kept you stagnant and spaces that support your clarity. And sometimes distance between people. This is where it becomes difficult. Because not everything that leaves your life will look negative. Not everything that begins to shift away will seem harmful on the surface. Some things will feel familiar, comfortable, even meaningful. But alignment is not based on familiarity, it is based on direction. And if something is not moving in the same direction as your clarity, your awareness, your growth, it cannot remain the same in your life. Archangel Michael reveals that this separation is already beginning. You may have felt it. Certain conversations no longer feel the same. Certain environments feel heavier than they used to. Certain connections feel misaligned, even if you cannot fully explain why. This is not confusion. This is discernment showing you what no longer fits. But here's where many hesitate. They try to hold on. They try to adjust themselves to maintain what is shifting. They try to ignore the feeling and continue as if nothing has changed. But once awareness is activated, you cannot return to unconscious connection. You cannot pretend not to see what you now clearly feel. And forcing yourself to stay in what no longer aligns only creates internal conflict. That is where the stress begins to return. Not because the pressure is coming from outside, but because you are resisting what you already understand within. Separation is not always loud. It does not always require confrontation. Sometimes it is quiet. A gradual pulling back. A reduction in engagement. A shift in how much energy you invest. A natural distancing that happens without force. And that is the healthiest form of separation, because it is led by awareness, not emotion. Archangel Michael is guiding you not to react harshly, not to cut everything off impulsively, but to observe and allow what is no longer aligned to reveal itself clearly. Because when something is no longer meant to remain, it will begin to feel out of place in your life. And your role is not to force it to stay. Your role is to acknowledge what is happening and allow the separation to occur naturally. This applies not only to people, but to patterns. Old habits that no longer serve you. Old ways of thinking that kept you in confusion. Old responses that were based on survival, not clarity. These must fall away as well, because you cannot carry old patterns into a new level of awareness. They will conflict with each other, and that conflict will feel like pressure, which is exactly what you have just moved through. So this moment requires honesty. Honesty about what feels aligned. Honesty about what feels forced. Honesty about where your energy is being drained instead of supported. Because the more honest you are, the easier this separation becomes, and the less resistance you create. Archangel Michael reminds you of this truth. Not everything is meant to go with you into your next phase. Not because it is bad, but because it is no longer aligned. And holding on to what is no longer aligned delays what is meant to arrive. This is where trust becomes essential. Trust that what is leaving is making space. Trust that what is shifting is creating alignment. Trust that what feels uncomfortable now is necessary for what will feel right later. Because space must be created before something new can enter. And right now, space is being made in your life. Do not rush to fill it. Do not replace what is leaving just to avoid the feeling of emptiness. Because that space is intentional. It is where clarity deepens. It is where direction becomes stronger. It is where your next step becomes undeniable. And once that step becomes clear, everything that aligns with it will follow naturally. You are not losing. You are refining. You are not being left behind. You are being repositioned. You are not being disconnected. You are being realigned. And that realignment requires separation. To allow it, do not fight it. Do not question it excessively. Simply observe, understand, and trust the process. Because what remains after this will be fully aligned with who you are now becoming. Type I allow what no longer aligns to leave in the comments if you are ready for this transition. Blessing code 1010 is now activating your alignment and release. Now that the separation has begun. Now that clarity has returned. Now that the pressure has broken and your awareness has been restored. There is one final shift that must take place within you. You cannot remain passive. You cannot stay in observation alone. You cannot simply understand what is happening and stop there. Because understanding without action keeps you in the same place. This is where activation begins. This is where you step into your authority. And this is where many hesitate. Not because they don't know what to do, but because stepping into authority requires ownership. It requires you to stop waiting for external validation. It requires you to stop second-guessing what you already know. It requires you to trust that the clarity you now have is enough to move forward. Archangel Michael is not just guiding you to awareness. He is calling you into position. Because authority is not given at the moment you feel ready. Authority is realized the moment you decide to stand in what you already know. And right now, you know more than you did before. You see more clearly than you did before. You feel the difference between alignment and misalignment in a way that you cannot ignore anymore. That is your authority. Not control over everything around you, but control over how you respond, how you move, how you choose. Because your power has never been in controlling circumstances. Your power has always been in choosing alignment despite them. This is where the shift becomes real. No longer asking, what is happening to me? But declaring, I see what is happening, and I choose how I respond. That is authority. That is activation. That is where you stop being affected by every shift and begin to navigate them with intention. Archangel Michael is making it clear. You are no longer in a position of confusion. You are no longer unaware. You are no longer reacting blindly to what you feel. You have been shown the pattern. You have been guided through the pressure. You have been brought into clarity. Now you must stand in it. Because clarity without action fades. Awareness without movement weakens. And authority without expression remains unused. This is not about dramatic changes. This is not about sudden external moves. This is about internal decisions that shape everything else. Decisions like what you allow into your space, what you engage with, what you entertain in your thoughts, what you tolerate in your environment. These are not small things. These are the expressions of your authority. Because every time you choose alignment, you reinforce it. Every time you choose clarity over confusion, you strengthen it. Every time you choose stillness over reaction, you stabilize it. This is how you step fully into this new phase, not by forcing change, but by consistently choosing what aligns with who you have now become. And this is where confidence begins to replace hesitation. Because confidence is not built from knowing everything. It is built from trusting what you already know. You do not need more signs. You do not need more confirmation. You do not need to wait for everything to make perfect sense. You already have what you need to begin moving differently. And that is enough. Archangel Michael is standing in this moment as a reminder, not as someone giving you power, but as someone revealing that you already have it. The power to choose. The power to align. The power to step forward without returning to what you have outgrown. And once you step into that, everything begins to respond differently. Because your external world adjusts to your internal position. When you stand in clarity, confusion has less influence. When you stand in alignment, misalignment becomes easier to recognize and release. When you stand in authority, you are no longer easily pulled into patterns that once controlled you. This is the activation. This is where everything you have just gone through becomes real in your actions. And this is where your next phase begins. Not later, not eventually, but now. Because authority is not something you wait to feel. It is something you choose to embody. So stand in it. Move with it. Trust it. Because everything that comes next will respond to how you position yourself in this moment. Type "I step into my authority" in the comments if you are claiming this shift. Blessing code 1111 is now activating your strength and direction. This is where everything comes together. Everything you felt, everything you've questioned, everything that didn't make sense at first but slowly revealed itself through awareness. It has all led you to this moment. Not a moment of viewing, not a moment of weighing, but a moment of seeing. Because now you see it. You understand that the stress was not random. You recognize that the pressure had purpose. You are aware that the shifts you felt were leading you somewhere specific. And now, the only thing left is your choice. Archangel Michael stands in this moment not to guide you further, but to present you with truth that cannot be ignored. Alignment is no longer optional for you. You have crossed the point where you can go back to being unaware. You have crossed the point where you can pretend not to see what you now clearly understand. You have crossed the point where you can continue carrying what was never yours without feeling the weight of that misalignment immediately. That phase is over. This is where you either step fully into alignment or you feel the resistance of avoiding it. And the difference between those two paths is not external. It is internal. It is in how you choose to think. It is in what you choose to engage with. It is in whether you honor what you now know or ignore it. Because from this moment forward, ignoring will feel heavier than before. Not because something is wrong, but because your awareness has expanded. An expanded awareness does not allow you to settle back into old patterns comfortably. You will feel it immediately. That inner tension when something is not aligned. That discomfort when you try to return to what you've already outgrown. That awareness that quietly says this is not for you anymore. That is not confusion. That is guidance. And now, you must follow it. This is not about perfection. This is not about getting everything right instantly. This is about commitment. A commitment to yourself that you will no longer ignore what you feel. A commitment that you will no longer carry what drains you. A commitment that you will no longer move in directions that create confusion instead of clarity. Because alignment is built through consistent choice. Not one decision, but repeated decisions that reflect who you are now becoming. Archangel Michael is not asking you to change your entire life overnight. He is asking you to choose correctly in this moment, and then again in the next, and then again after that. Because every aligned choice strengthens your direction. Every clear decision builds momentum. Every moment of awareness you act on moves you further into the life you are meant to step into. And here is what you must hold on to as you move forward. You are not behind. You are not late. You are not trying to catch up. You are exactly where you need to be, at the moment where awareness has fully reached you. And from here everything changes. Because once you move with alignment, things begin to open differently. Decisions become easier. Opportunities become clearer. Distractions lose their pull. And your path begins to feel steady instead of uncertain. This is not something you will have to force. This is something that will happen naturally as long as you continue choosing alignment. That is your responsibility now. Not to control everything. Not to predict everything. But to remain aligned with what you now know. Because that is where your direction is. That is where your clarity is. That is where your next phase begins. And it begins with this decision. Right now. Type "I choose alignment" fully in the comments if you are stepping into this final shift. Blessing code 1212 is now sealing your path with clarity, strength, and forward movement. And as you step fully into this alignment, hear this clearly. This message was never meant to stop with you. Just as your awareness was awakened, there are others still trapped in confusion, still carrying pressure they don't understand, still waiting for truth to reach them. When you give through Super Thanks or through the PayPal link in the description, you are not supporting a creator. You are sowing into a divine assignment that brings light to those still in darkness. The Lord declares, "Cast your bread upon the waters, for you will find it after many days, and this is your moment to release what will return to you multiplied." I feel this deeply for you. Your action right now is not small. It is prophetic. It becomes a seed that unlocks clarity in someone else's life while opening new doors in yours. Do not hold back in this moment. Step forward with faith, give with purpose, and let your obedience become the vessel through which God continues to move.